It can be boring, it can be tedious, it can be repetitious, it can be mentally, it can be physically draining. What am I talking about? Stay tuned. I'm talking about lead follow-up. So I suppose in all my 34 years selling real estate, one of the things I had to learn very, very, very early on was the amount of now business is tiny. So if I talk to 100 people, maybe one or two of them would say, yes, Daryl, I'm ready to sell my house now, or yes, I'm ready to buy now. The rest will give me something less than that. So it might be, yeah, we're thinking about selling. Oh, we might buy. Oh, we're not sure. Maybe in 3 months, maybe in 6 months, maybe when the kids grow up a little bit more and move out. And sometimes that lead would be maybe coming to maturity in a week, a month, 2 years, 3 years. I have followed up literally on leads for 6 years before I've turned that into some business. If I look at the amount of money that cost me over that 6-year period, it'd be less than $100. That's accounting for my time and everything. Yet that lead would generate literally tens of thousands of dollars worth of income for me. So is it worth it? Yes. And you have to understand, lead follow-up is a nurturing process to convert. So you're nurturing the lead along, you're helping it mature to the point where you can convert it into an appointment. And that appointment obviously turns into a listing appointment, a buyer's appointment, or a sale down the road. There's two little sayings that I've always associated with lead follow-up. One, motion is not action. So don't confuse motion with action. In other words, make sure what you're doing is leading to a result. It's not just busy work. And the second one is, the success of this is in the system. You have to have a system, and it has to be applied on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, over a decade for you to not only achieve success, but to maintain success. I mean, once I discovered how lead follow-up worked, I realized I could take time off, I could take vacations. Because if you don't have a lead follow-up system, you're only ever looking for now business, which means when you decide to take a day off, a week off, or heaven forbid in real estate, a month off, your business will grind to a halt because there's nothing in that pipeline. So lead follow-up is like filling up a big swimming pool, and there's a hole in the side of the swimming pool. And by you prospecting, that fills the pool up and it becomes fuller. By you doing lead follow-up, they're the leads coming out of that hole in the pool. Problem is, if you keep taking leads out and doing lead follow-up, that hole gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the volume in the pool gets lower and lower and lower. So it is a constant process of filling up that pool with leads and then processing them out of that hole in the pool to appointments, to listings, to buyers, obviously to contracts. And I suppose one of the exciting things for me in the lead follow-up process, and I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe my life's boring, but I'd get very excited when I was following up with someone and then they would say, yes, we're ready to sell now, Daryl. And I'd been doing that follow-up for weeks, months, or years. That's extremely exciting. Along with someone just calls you out of the blue and says, hey, Daryl, you've been calling and emailing now for a year, and yeah, we said it'd be a bit longer, but our plans have changed and we're ready to go now. Can you come over and talk to us about selling? That, to me, that makes it all worthwhile, and that excites me, and hopefully it excites you. If it doesn't, then maybe you should be in real estate. One of the things I realized about lead follow-up is there's lots of things that can get in the way. And, the normal things, kids, life, spouses, your vehicle breaking down. There's tons of things that can get in the way. But what was interesting for me, the biggest obstacle to lead follow-up for me was a really good real estate market. Because in a really good real estate market, business just keeps coming out of the woodwork, and you get so busy handling now business, you forget about handling business that may come down the road. And then all of a sudden that good market starts to slow down, and you suddenly notice you have no appointments for next week. You have no listings coming up. You have no sales down the road, which means you might go without income for 2, 3, 4, 5 months. So be aware of what gets you off track, apart from all the normal things, but especially a really good market. And conversely, in a really bad market, as a real estate agent, and we feel this, you feel like crap. You lose that motivation. It beats you up a little bit. You go on appointments, you're not getting listings. So that can also cause you mentally just to go, oh, I just can't be bothered. Well, you've got to have awareness of that. And when you have awareness of it, that means you can do something about it. So when I was prospecting, a lead for me is someone that had a time frame and a destination. It didn't matter how far out that time frame was or where that destination was, but a lead, for me to qualify a lead, it had to have a destination and a time frame. At one time, I had a bank of maybe 8 telemarketers working for me. This is probably early 90s. And they would generate leads. Our head telemarketer would verify those leads by calling those leads back the next day and verifying that they had a time frame and a destination. If they didn't have that, we did not qualify them as a lead, period. So make sure you don't just fill your database with people, because then you'll be confusing motion with action. You'll have a lot of people in there from all your motion, but the action won't be leading to a result, which again is a sale. I get asked this question tons. What if they say, no, Daryl, we're not selling? Here's my technique. I ignore it. What if they say it again? Here's my second technique. I ignore it. I only take a lead out of the system, in other words, make them inactive, once they've told me 3 times, no, we're not selling. We told you last time, aren't you listening? Once I get that 3 times, then they're not a lead, they go inactive in the system. I never really delete, I just make inactive because they're still on a mailing list somewhere. What you want to be careful of is that you don't generate what I call a reflex no. And a reflex no is, hey, I called you last month, you said you were thinking of selling in 6 months, just getting an update, would you like to know all the houses that are sold on your street? Oh, Daryl, no, we've changed our mind, thanks for your time. The number of people that have said that to me, then a month later I've called back, and it's like that previous conversation never happened. They just don't remember it. Go through the same script again, and they said, oh yeah, it's still going to be 2 months. So never take one no as no. Now, disclaimer, unless you're dating or going out with someone, then no does mean no. But that's the only time it means no, not in sales. My next thing I did, or that I understood, was how to categorize leads. Hot, warm, and cold. So, I mean, you can kind of figure that out for yourself. Hot is someone selling now. What's now? Well, probably within 6 months, that's hot. 6 months to probably a year and a half, that's warm. A year and a half or 2 years plus, that's cold. So why did I do that? Because I was always follow up on them at different rates. But the reason I did that is if I had a period where I wasn't getting the listings or the sales that I wanted, I would then sort out my hot leads and I would call them out of sequence. In other words, I was going to call that hot lead in a month, I'd call them today. I'd call them out of that sequence to try and generate some now business. So that's why you categorize your leads, so you can go in and call now business. Now, conversely, if you're at a point where you can start to hire someone to help you, hire someone to prospect, first thing you do, give them all the cold leads and tell them to call. Because there's no risk with that. They can't really blow it by saying the wrong thing. So that's why you categorize leads, hot, warm, and cold, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. I don't care. Just have a system. Here's the other thing I do, which has become much easier over the decades. When I first started doing this, I would call a lead, I'd have a conversation, I would literally sit down at a typewriter, type a letter as slow as I could so I didn't make mistakes, put that letter in an envelope, and I'd have maybe 5 or 10 letters to mail, go to the post office next day, stamp, send it. It's gotten easier. But my point is, after every conversation with them, an email gets sent. If I leave a message, an email gets sent. And the email for a message is, hi Bob, Mary, I called yesterday but you weren't in, I left you a quick message. The market is extremely hot at the moment, everything's selling. I just had a house sell that had 14 offers on it. If you've changed your mind or your time frame's changed a little bit, give me a bell, we can have a chat. That's a pretty standard email to go out after you leave a message. Now, if you go to chat with them, the email is what the chat was. That does 2 things. Number 1, it shows you're an agent that follows up. You keep in the top of their mind. And number 2, it showed you listened to the conversation that you had, because now you're kind of repeating it back to them in the email. So what things can you say to them when you call? Because it feels like sometimes you run out of things. Well, that's where I had a list. I can't remember how long it was right now because it's in my head, but it's probably 5 or 10 things that I would have a conversation with. So if I was going to call someone, maybe the conversation would go to, if they were listing, hey, would you like a list of all the sales on your street? Would you like a list of all the sales above $1 million? Do you want a market update sent to you every month with what's generally happening in the economy in this town? if you are thinking of moving, would you like me to recommend some painters, some landscapers, people that can come in and maybe do some spruce up? If you are thinking of selling, would you like me to recommend someone that can come in and stage your home to get it ready? So I'd have a list of things which would be part of the conversation. So if I was talking to someone and it suddenly didn't go anywhere, I would throw in one of my little conversation pieces like, oh, Bob, Mary, I know it's going to be 6 months to a year before you're ready to sell, but what I do with most of my clients is I have them talk to someone that can stage their house and also someone that can have a look and say, gosh, you should really paint your house, you should really do some landscaping. So would you like me to arrange that? Doesn't cost anything, it's just a service I offer. So I'm always trying to add value rather than and never do this, rather than hi, this is Daryl just touching base with you. Waste of time. Don't do that. Add a value to your call. This one took me a long time to learn. Be prepared for someone to say, yes, I'm ready to have you come over to my house to talk to me about listing in this case, or yes, I'm ready to buy a house. Can we have a meeting? Be ready for a yes. Be mentally prepared. I even got to the point where I expected a yes all the time. And if someone says, no, I'm not ready yet, or no, we're still waiting, or no, we've chosen another agent, I would go, oh, okay then. I would be surprised when I got rejection, and I would be, what's the word I'm looking for? I'd expect acceptance. So don't just assume lead follow-up is all, no, not ready yet, no, not ready, no, not. Have an assumption that they're going to say yes. Be surprised when they don't, but have that assumption. Go into it expecting a result. Now that will be tied into goal setting and everything else, which we're not getting into today. But if you set your goals correctly, when you make prospecting calls, you have an expectation of a positive result, not an expectation of a negative result. Because given the choice, you should always default to the positive result, not the negative result. That wouldn't make sense to go that way, would it? And finally, 4 mistakes, I think it's 4, that I see agents make all the time. So in all the coaching that I do, and if you want to talk to me about coaching, send me a message below. There's 4 common mistakes in lead follow-up. The first one is you just give up way too soon. So in other words, if that lead doesn't turn into something in a week, a month, or a year, you go, I'll go on to the next one. Don't do that. Like I said earlier, I've followed up on leads for 6 years. Cost me $100 maximum, and that's even in the old days. Now it'd be less than that. And it turns into a sale where I generate $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. So not giving up, giving up too early is the first big mistake. Second big mistake, and I mentioned this earlier, getting distracted by a really good market or a really bad market. Really good market, you're so busy, I got no time to prospect and lead follow-up, big mistake. Really bad market, and I feel like crap, I just don't feel like prospecting. Second biggest mistake agents make. Third biggest mistake, which kind of makes sense, if you don't prospect, there's no lead follow-up, which means you're only ever looking for now business. Huge, huge mistake. You have to prospect to create a lead follow-up system. Sounds simple, but the number of agents that I meet, that I help, that I consult with, that don't constantly and consistently prospect is, gosh, I'd say probably 50% of the agents easily. And the fourth and final biggest mistake is they don't keep accurate records. And I'm actually training a new real estate agent with my company right now, and I've really stressed you have to keep good records. And we're going through some clients right now, this morning one, and they said 6 months ago, yes, we're moving to another state. This is in Australia. We're moving to another state. So when you make the call, say, hey, Bob and Mary, we spoke 6 months ago and you said you were moving to Western Australia in this case. You said you're moving to Western Australia in a few more months. Is that still the case? That does 2 things. 1, it showed you listened previously. And 2, it tells a client that you actually cared about what they said enough to remember. Now, the client doesn't know it's written down in your lead follow-up system. They just think, oh, I must be their only client. They remembered I said I was moving to Western Australia in this case. So keeping accurate records in all your lead follow-up is absolutely critical because it personalizes what you can say next. That's it. We're done. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell if you want to be reminded for the next video. Make a comment. I'll answer every single comment. That's it for now. Go list, go sell, enjoy the business, and do your lead follow-up.